What's happening, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to Junkdrummer TV, where I give my initial reactions, my hot takes, my analysis on the drummers of today and yesterday, and maybe tomorrow if I stick around that long. I'm a professional drum teacher and a gigging musician, and I have been for 20 plus years. On today's episode, we're going to be watching our first hip-hop drummer. Now, when you say hip-hop drummer, the only name that comes to mind should be Amir Khalib Thompson, Questlove of the legendary Roots crew. The only way I can explain how much Questlove means to me is I have two drumsticks on my wall. One is one of Vinnie Paul's drumsticks, and right under that is an autographed drumstick from Brother Questlove. I don't know if you can see all that. This was given to me by one of my students a long time ago. She went on that Area 1 tour that Moby did, and it was like Incubus, Nelly Furtado, and The Roots. And the student got backstage, and she knew how much I loved Questlove, because I probably made her play some Roots songs in lessons, and she got his autograph for me. Stick around for the end of this video, and I'll tell a story about how Questlove made me have way better time. So on top of being the drummer and the founder of The Roots, he's done so many great records. That Voodoo record by D'Angelo is amazing, and he produced it. The Roots did this great, super dope record with John Legend, which is a bunch of protest songs. That record's amazing. Questlove is just maybe the coolest drummer of all time. He's just cool. It's the only way you can describe it. If you've ever seen interviews of him, he's this really giving, sweetheart, kind soul of a guy, and that makes you love him even more. But there's something about his style, and it's weird. He's kind of the human drum machine, and that's a really hard thing to do. For those of you like myself who have played to a lot of Roots records, it's really hard to get that complete, consistent, not just good time, but good, consistent sound production to make it sound like you're a drum machine. It really kills my soul. Okay, it kills my soul, but I also am very glad that America has a chance to see the Roots play 5 days a week, because I think the Roots are one of the greatest bands to ever be put together. I think of them that importantly. But, they're on the fucking Jimmy Fallon show, and I fucking hate Jimmy Fallon. But he is smart enough to have the most badass funk hip-hop drummer of our time on his show, so I guess I'll give him a pass on that. Before we get into it, please feel free to like, comment, and share. Give me a double tap on the subscription and the notification bell. Please check out my Patreon. Also have a PayPal donation link if you're into that kind of thing. I am so excited because I've been waiting to do this episode for a while. Let's watch Questlove with the legendary Roots crew and the Queen Erykah Badu play You Got Me.
And their brand new CD
I love Letterman.
Is titled
Watch Letterman
Things
every night.
Fall Apart. Please welcome with special guest Erykah Badu, The Roots. Go, kids.
Somebody told me that this planet was small. We used to live in the same building on the same floor and never met before until
that
I'm overseas on tour. Pete this
Pocket
queen from Philly
and
taking
Groove
class abroad.
feels like
and photo flash focus
and sounds like.
Said she working on a flick and
That's what it feels like.
She said she loved my show in Paris at Elysee Montmartre, and I stepped off the stage and took a piece of her heart. We knew from the start things fall apart and tend to shatter. She like, yo, that don't matter when I get home. Get at her through letter phone.
So especially during this era of the Roots and Questlove, this is around Things Fall Apart, Phrenology, what's that, the one after that, Game Theory, and the records before that. If you've read that Modern Drummer magazine with Questlove on the cover, it's a really old one. It's the one where he's got lots of circuitry attached to his body, to make him look like the human drum machine. He talked about his #1 goal was to get a groovy human feel to what would traditionally be hip-hop beats that would be programmed. If you listen to a snare drum kind of sounds like an 808. That stuff's on purpose. And one of the biggest things that you can get from Questlove, and you can't really say this about any other drummer, when he was playing, and especially back then, he's a little more organic sounding now, but especially back then, he was playing with such a consistent sound, such consistent sound production, that it sounded like an 808 machine. But it wasn't that mechanical feel that you get from, a pre-programmed drum part. It had the human funk of organic material making those notes. You know what I'm saying? That's something to really watch for in this.
Whatever, let's link, let's get together. What you think? Not like I went home and forgot. Time passed, we back in Philly, now she up in my spot, telling me the things I'm telling her is making her hot. Started building with her constantly round the clock. Now she in my world.
Just
like
a slight swing.
Telling me, yeah. If you're wondering back, well,
okay. I love her. I love her so much.
Say what?
Okay, this is more of an analyzed video because I do know this song pretty well. This is something that not enough bands do. If you know the recorded version of this arrangement of this chorus is not on there. The original is more straight ahead, 16th note groove like he's playing during the verse there. But right there they turned into like a almost like a New Orleans groove on the bass drum. That's not on the original. So many bands, I think, drop the ball when they record their song, and that song is, on wax and codified, that song ceases to live. I like watching bands, Led Zeppelin did this, I like watching bands who take their recordings and they mess around and play with them. The Roots did it all the time. Bands, musicians, just because you've recorded that song in a certain way doesn't mean that that's done. When you go and gig that and play that night after night, you may find some new shit that you didn't get the first time that you recorded it. This is a great example of that. I've had bands that weren't into that scene really and got into some trouble where oh, we've recorded this song, it's fucking the way it's supposed to sound. I'm like, yeah, but the thing we got into live in front of a crowd is cool too. I think that if you keep your song codified and you don't explore it, you miss out on maybe some more yummies that you can get out of that song. The Roots are getting more yummies out of this song. She's heavenly. That's a callback to one of her songs. It's called Rimshot. Yeah, so these arrangements that you're hearing right now, please go watch this video without my nonsense, and then go watch this song, or go listen to this song and listen to how much they've changed it. They've developed it over time. Yeah, Kamal's playing something completely different on the keyboards. And I'm just going to say this now. I am a Hub fanatic. Leonard Hubbard, their former bass player, I can't remember, I think he left somewhere after the Game Theory record, somewhere around in that era. They miss him a lot. The Hub was and is one of my favorite bass players. They've got a tuba player now, and they've got a bass player who's fantastic, but he's not the Hub. Yeah, man, this is a whole different arrangement from the original one. That's cool. That is a band that trusts their instincts. Andre 3000 was a lucky man. There's your hip hop break. You gotta have your hip hop stop. Listen to that bass line. God damn it. They got Scott Storch on the keyboard back there. Boy, we got to talk about that. That is something that was very prevalent in the 90s, and you will see a lot of from drummers like Jojo Mayer. This is like a jungle break beat, which was kind of like, for all you kids, the EDM of the 90s. And those beats were made by DJs. This was a very interesting thing that was happening during the 90s, where almost these drum beats were being reverse engineered from DJs. So what DJs would do is they would take a drum beat. They say something like the Amen break. If you don't know what the Amen break is, look it up, go check it out. You take the Amen break and you speed it up, and then you chop it up. And then, you know, it sounds like if you heard that song Block Rockin' Beats, that's a good example of like break beat and jungle. Artists like Goldie and Tricky were doing it. They were kind of the forefront of that. This is what Questlove is doing here. He's playing a break beat or a jungle beat, and that is completely ripped off from DJ culture. And I always thought that was super interesting. I did it once. I had a part in a jam band song that I was in that I did the same thing. There was a band in Baltimore called Lake Trout. They're legendary. They're amazing. I played a bunch of shows with them, and their drummer was the king of reverse engineering DJ breakbeats and playing them live on the drums, and that's what you're hearing right here. I love this so much. And it's even more prevalent, this breakbeat, on the recorded version. Yeah, man, they're just jamming right here. And that's when they had Roselle, the human scratch machine. Yeah, they're playing like a rock band right here, even though it's funk and hip-hop. Sing to me, Erykah Badu, all day. And I wanted to say this earlier. All you people under 30 who are going to complain about the quality of that video, well, that's what TV looked like before high fidelity. So, the big thing to get out of this, Questlove is the man. If you don't know that, you've got to go educate. Just look up Questlove. And here's the problem, though. There's not enough Questlove drum cams and such. I think of him as a drum hero. He's a top 50 drummer. For me, he's probably a top 20 drummer. There's not enough video of him, but look at everything that he's done. This guy has his own groove. As soon as he starts playing, you know it's him. And you know it's him not from crazy drum fills and shit, and he can do all that. He did a record called The Philadelphia Experiment with Christian McBride, where he kind of played more drum fills and stuff. You can see that that dude can really do a lot of that. But this is a guy who has a signature groove. He just plays a groove, and a groove is a groove. You know, there's only so many of them. But if you can play a groove and people know exactly who you are, you will always stay employed. And Brother Questlove will stay employed for the rest of his life or until he's done playing drums. So the story of how Questlove saved me from bad time. I used to have really bad time, and I went to go make my first record. I made my first record on a blackface ADAT machine, if you all know what that is, and it's recording on a VCR tape. So we did this record. We were recording for the first time. We're doing it ourselves, and you know, we did a recording without a metronome, and it sounded like shit. And it was the first time where I'd heard myself played back at me in good quality sound, and it was awful. I was like, oh no, I have terrible time. I can't play in time. This is fucking awful. I just graduated college. And I was shut down the recording session. I was like, look, guys, let me go get my shit together. And for about 2 or 3 weeks straight, I played Things Fall Apart, the record that this song is from. And I played The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and I played that every day for 3 weeks. I played those 2 records because there weren't really any drum fills on it. It was just grooves, and it made me focus on my groove playing, and it's when I really found out what was most important in life on the drums, and that is laying down great time for the song to lay on top of. And Questlove, and my time's still not as great as I would want it to be, but Questlove is the reason that I finally got my shit together time-wise. So yeah, man, if I got to turn some of you on to Questlove, I have done a good thing today, because he is the man, and that's the only way I can put it. anything he's on, except that Elvis Costello record they did. I was really excited about that. I love Elvis Costello, and I love The Roots, and that record is not great. But everything he breathes on, listen to it. So if you enjoyed all that, please again, give me a like, comment, and share. Give me a double tap subscription and the notification bell. Remember my Patreon, remember my PayPal, and remember, lay down the groove like Questlove, and you do that by keep practicing until it's easy.